Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
Happy hump day, everybody. Welcome to your business therapy on Wednesday afternoon. I'm just going to make sure our chat is working. So let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. I'm always curious to see where in the world. This is a global show. I love the fact that we get viewers from all over the planet. So I'm going to go ahead and get the chat working here. And yeah, just pop in the chat, say hi. Let me know where you're tuning in from. But yes, this is the Do What Is Necessary live stream. Let me know, too, in the comments if this is the first time you've ever caught the show. Because you probably have no idea who this guy with all of this orange coming at you on a Wednesday afternoon is all about. But those of you who are tuned into the show every single week, thank you. We appreciate all you do. We appreciate the fact that you tune in every week, you contribute every week. And I just wanted to welcome you back as well. So if you are a repeat guest and you've caught the show before, put that in the comments. Say hello, because I've got a very special show today, all dedicated to the entrepreneurial community. Because if you've caught this show before, this show started on April 1st, on April Fool's Day last year, at the start of a very, to say crazy, I think is an understatement of the century. But this has been a labor of love for me. I started this show as a way to help entrepreneurs, to communicate, to upbuild, to encourage entrepreneurs. And that's why I call this the Do What Is Necessary live stream. This isn't about listening to all the gurus and all the hype and 10x this and 10x that stuff that's been going around for years. This is about doing what is absolutely necessary for you, for your business, for your personal life, taking all of that together and sharing that with the entrepreneurial community. That's what I'm all about. So all of this orange, I run a company called Orange Nomad. I am all about taking hustling, overworked entrepreneurs and turning them into unstoppable but calm CEOs. So I want to welcome a few people to the show. Let's see here. We've got Dan Rockwell coming to us from right here in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you, Dan, for tuning in. We're glad to have you back for another week. We appreciate all you do for the entrepreneurial community right here in my hometown, which is Columbus, Ohio, and that's where the Orange Nomad Studios are headquartered for right now. And I say for right now. That's why I named the company Orange Nomad. Hopefully we'll be back to traveling very soon. So, Dan Gilligan, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being a repeat guest as well. All right, we're going to get into the meat of this topic today. This is all about reaching the top. We all want to do that when we start our companies as entrepreneurs. We want to reach the top. We want the easy way as best, but we're here to talk about how do you do that? How do you find the easy way of getting to the top of your business without sacrificing your soul, without killing yourself? And I'm going to bring on a special guest here in a second to be able to talk about that, what he's seen, and the leadership and guidance that we need as entrepreneurs to get to the top. So, Dan, thanks again for being here. So he's good to be here. Let's see, like I said, if you're just joining the show, please put that in the comments. Let me know where you're tuning in from as well. All right, without further ado, I want to welcome a special guest, John Fulwider, to the show today. So please help me give a warm welcome to John Fulwider. Appreciate you being on the show today, John.
Andrew, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's an honor.
Awesome. So just to give a little bit of back history, how did you and I end up meeting? And just tell a little bit of people about our story, which is kind of funny to us, but.
Man, we met over our shared love of orange right here on LinkedIn. As I recall, I think what it was that I saw you had just a kick butt set of studio headphones that were all kind of that burnt orange, right? Yes, those.
Had to retire those recently, but anyway.
Yeah, and I just messaged you out of the blue and said, I love your headphones. Where did you get them? And a great business friendship started from there.
I think that's the awesome power of LinkedIn. I mean, a lot of people, you get on LinkedIn and they're there to try to sell people stuff, and I totally get that. As entrepreneurs, that's what we got to do, is grow businesses. But that's what I loved about you and I, is we had a connection, had a conversation at length about headphones and about the color of orange. But it's been a great friendship that has completely started in a virtual world. But that's what I wanted to have you on the show, not just because you love the color orange. Which,
Yes.
by the way, thank you. These will be hopefully pimped out in orange next week, my new pair of headphones. So stay tuned. You'll have to catch in the show next week to see my new pimped out orange headphones. I'll send you a picture of those too, John. So
Can't
All
wait.
right. So what I want to talk about today is, first of all, let's keep the orange theme going. Where did your love for the color of orange come from? Or like where you're...
Man, well, first I gotta tell you and your audience, just keep this on the down low, right? But my favorite shade of orange is, sort of University of Texas burnt orange.
Yep.
And we need to keep that secret from two people, my father and my father-in-law, both of whom are Texas Aggies, and would not take well the news that I like UT's color, or as they say, TU. Yeah.
Yep.
I honestly don't remember where the love of burnt orange started. It's one of those things where I feel it's always been my favorite color. I have an orange car, right? I'm wearing orange socks right now. My love of orange is never ending. I got an orange hexagonal clock right here. Yeah.
Lots of things, as you can see. Everything. My wife calls it a sickness. I just bought an orange desk pad that we talked about prior to going live.
Yes.
She just
Yep.
looked at me and said, "Man, you're sick." But yeah, I've got just tons of orange stuff here in the office. It just, for me, the color orange, just it's excitement, it's energy. It's, for me, I love sunrises because it's a new opportunity for a new day. That's just me.
Yes.
I just love the power and energy from the color orange. It's, for me, orange is the color of a good mood. That's my tagline that I've had on a lot of my social media profile. It's hard to be in a good mood when you're looking at something orange. That's me personally. So anyway.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
So you and I are going to talk about, journey into entrepreneurship and how the challenges that we've seen with entrepreneurs, the achievements that we've seen with entrepreneurs, and how we bridge that gap. Because a lot of entrepreneurs are stuck. They've lost their way, especially over the last year, which, again, was the reason I started this show. I went through the 2008 recession as an entrepreneur. I remember how lonely that felt, and I longed for a sense of community, of belonging, for other people who I knew had the same shared experience. So I went on a journey trying to find other people that were just like me. And that's what I wanted to do with this show. I wanted this to be an outlet for entrepreneurs to come, to get encouragement, to be inspired, and to help them, do what is absolutely necessary. That's why I started the show with that name. So tell us a little bit about how you became an entrepreneur, how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, I got a late start in purely working for myself entrepreneurship. Although as I look back at my careers I had prior to starting my businesses, I really realized that there was a recurring theme of wanting more freedom in terms of where and with whom and when I spent my working time, and also wanting to have my work more directly translate into rewards for me and my family. So it all started with newspaper journalism and having a specialty in writing about politics. And, in newspapering, as with my next career that I'll mention, man, you can write your way to the top, your own individual grit, initiative, curiosity. The more you apply that, right, the more opportunities you're going to have to write fun stories, the promotions you're going to get at your present newspaper, the opportunities you're going to get to work at, a larger market newspaper, right? So I ended my career in newspaper journalism at a highly entrepreneurial outlet. And that outlet was called Nebraska State Paper. And we were an internet newspaper before there were internet newspapers. I remember when I went to cover one of the presidential nominating conventions, the press credentialing was handled through the Senate Press Gallery. And I called up the Senate Press Gallery and said, I'd like a credential to cover the convention. And he says, well, I'm going to need to see printed copies of your newspaper. Fortunately, it was on the telephone, so he couldn't see my face screw up when I said, wait, in my head, what part of internet newspaper, do you not understand? So that was the first step in entrepreneurship. Next step was working in academia, right? I was pursuing becoming a tenured professor of political science, right? And again, the thing about academia is that you write your own ticket based on your grit, initiative, right? The more exciting and the more numerous research papers you publish, the higher your star rises. So I kind of think about academia as individual entrepreneurship with a landing pad. Ultimately, the job market didn't work out for me. I went through two difficult job market cycles and had been at the same time running a consulting business, about half-time balance between that and pursuing tenure in the academy. University didn't work, so I cried in my beer for 7 straight days, and then on day 8, I took the consulting business full-time.
Nice. So a diverse journey, it sounds like, in the entrepreneurial space already.
Yes.
But what challenges have you had, learning entrepreneurship and running a business? And those of you watching the show, if you've got questions for John, put those in the comments. We'll put those up on the screen as well. So feel free to just say hi to John as well in the comments. Just let me know you're still alive too as we have this conversation. So, but yeah, what challenges have you seen as you've started and run your own businesses?
Right. Oh, man. Well, I mean, my first business failed, of course, as a lot of first businesses do. It was a computer repair company, right? And so I did, sort of a PC doctor who does house calls, would go to the client's house or their office. And man, I just did not plan for the amount of time it would take to, this was back in the days of, computer towers that were under people's desks. Like, yep. I simply didn't factor in the amount of time it would take to untangle that from the cat hair and, the abandoned breadsticks, right? And the sticky stuff back there. And you know how computers were back then. There were, a mess of cables and everything. Then get that back to my shop, reformat the hard drive, reinstall Windows. Reinstalling Windows takes like 10 days and everything. And I just wasn't able to figure out a way to make that profitable. So that was the early days. After that, though, I've just gone from success to success. Denise Bowling, my mentor at the University of Nebraska Public Policy Center, she handed me my first consulting business. I was doing research in this one area relevant to governments, right? And she said, hey, John, that thing that you do, there's a federal agency that requires state grantees to do that thing. You should sell that to the state departments. And by the way, here's your first client. And I said, well, thank you, Denise. That's really generous of you. And, that referral, one thing led to another, which led to an evolution into an executive coaching business, which led to an evolution into the work that I do today.
That's awesome. You see, I knew you and I had some other connections there. I spent 30 years in the IT industry, and a lot of our audience is in the IT industry. So if anybody can relate to John's story, about all of the nastiness underneath desks, and we still see it when we go into offices. It's just
Man.
not quite to the level when you do residential.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's a challenging business, and this last year has brought a lot of new challenges, or I shouldn't say new challenge. It's actually escalated the additional challenges that the IT industry has experienced for several years. But I think it has solidified their place at the table more than anything. That, as we've seen over the last year, businesses can't run without technology. It's no longer a necessary evil.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as a former church sound guy, I was so encouraged and it made my heart glad last night. I was at a Rotary event, and they made the tech team Rotarian of the Year, right?
Yep.
2-person tech team who had done all of the Zoom meetings of Rotary. Because man, Rotary, they
Yep.
get together. They get together Tuesdays at noon, come hell or high water or pandemic, right? And the show had to go on, and the tech team made that happen.
Nice. Yeah. It's just a huge shout out and much respect to the folks that are still working in tech. So, what challenges have you seen? You talked about your venture into coaching and consulting, and that's why I kind of put it together with being a business growth guide. That's your technical term of what we call ourselves as coaches. But what challenges have you seen entrepreneurs experience, especially as they continue to grow, from startup mode through growth mode? What challenges do you think are unique to entrepreneurs?
Oh man, I'll just list a small handful in no particular order. Getting your complete vision as an entrepreneur out of your head. I was working with a client, and we did sort of a vision session with his leadership team designed to get out of his head. And then I asked him at the end of the exercise, we'd spent a couple hours on it, and I said, what percentage of your vision did we just get out of your head, and what percentage is still there? It was like, oh, that was just 20% of it. There's still 80%. So visionaries struggle to communicate to their teams the scope and scale of the vision. Andrew, it's like this. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, I'm a literalist. So if someone were to ask me, do you see what I'm saying? I would say, well, no, because air is clear and I can't see it vibrating, in response to the motion of your vocal cords and everything. But we have this weird saying, do you see what I'm saying? As if, when I talk, a picture will appear in your mind. That's super infrequently the case, right? When you're talking and you're trying to put into words and create a picture in somebody else's mind of something you, the entrepreneur, have been thinking about 24/7, 365 for like 5, 10, 15 years. There is a way to get 100% of your vision out of your head and into the heads of first your leadership team and then the rest of your company. It's a simple process. It's not always easy. The next challenge is getting that vision executed by your company. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Execution is everything. So putting in place processes and playbooks and performance measures that all yield predictably profit, right? And just executing on that vision day in and day out with discipline and real accountability. That's also not always easy. There are simple tools to make it happen, though. Another thing is just having the right people on your leadership team. I've encountered owners of companies time and again who either realize before they engage me or soon come to realize after they engage me that some of the people on the team right now don't have the firepower to get us where we're growing, or we also realize that they're just not culture fits. They don't actually agree with the owner's vision, and they're kind of jerks about it. A great culture starts with the leadership team behaving according to our core values. And so when we've already got a core values mismatch right there on the leadership team, that's going to significantly slow us down. That's probably the handful of challenges that I encounter.
You touched on a couple of them. I've seen the same thing as well, where everything lives here in an owner's mind, and helping them to see the need to get that out of their head and into process and systems, as you mentioned, that I see continues to be the biggest challenge. Because yes, we know the vision, we're dedicated to it. Nobody is going to dedicate the blood, sweat, and tears like the entrepreneur, like the person that started the company. Dan Rockwell said the same thing. His clarity engineering is very underrated. But getting that vision out of our head into something tangible. And I think that's particularly going to become even more a dominant. You talked about culture, but that yearning that people have to be part of something more than just a company that makes money.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's going to become ever more, the measuring stick by which people decide whether or not they're going to come to work for you.
Absolutely. That's that compelling purpose, that core purpose that is already in the visionary entrepreneur's heart. One challenge I see visionary entrepreneurs struggling with is they want to involve the team, which is a good thing in a lot of instances. But they want their leadership team, who aren't owners of the company, to think up from scratch the incredibly inspiring, motivating, energizing purpose that already has the owner and the founding entrepreneur lit up. And, I've had to confront my owners and I say, what do you want to do? How do you want to invest your time? Do you want the team to guess what's in your head? I'm inspired by your purpose. I'm energized by it. Do we want them to catch up with you and invent it on their own? Or do we just want to tell them what it is and invite them to help us drive this bus or get off right now, to use a Jim Collins term?
Yep. No, I like that. Just that ownership ability for the people that are working for you, being bought into that vision, that dream, that, our why, which is entrepreneurs. I think for the most part, I've talked about this on some previous shows. We get into entrepreneurship not for the money. I mean, that's really, we want what you talked about at the top of the show. We want the freedom. We want the ability to make decisions and do things the way that we want them done. But yeah, getting the buy-in from the people that are actually going to be implementing the systems is the only way that we're going to get to the top. Because let's face it, most of us aren't going to get there by ourselves. I don't think any of us can get there by ourselves. But yeah, Dan just commented too. I'm going to put this up on the screen. Says, while we need all these things to execute, we have to stop killing this notion that ideas don't matter, because without the muse, you have no momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that. So how do we do that? How what are some recommendations that you would have for leaders in how they get one, to convey that idea to their team, but how to get that buy-in so that people are bought into that vision that will help you drive forward.
Yeah, I mean, I recommend hiring a guide to help you do that. Obviously, that's a highly self-interested comment. I'm a guide, Andrew. You're a guide, but I'm a pinnacle business growth guide. So in my teaching, right, in my marketing, I use a lot of mountain climbing analogies. I've got a mountain to climb right behind me. The quote here is, the people on top of the mountain didn't fall there. The people on top of the mountain didn't fall there. The people who get to the top of Everest, they go with a guide. They go with a team of guides, right? Sherpas who have walked in those boots, have walked that route. They know how to get there. They know the path. They know the tools. And they know how to adapt the journey to the top to the particular team that's climbing with them. So the basic blocking and tackling of business, how to set strategy, how to hold people accountable in meetings, how to turn your core values into a powerful culture, how to attract and retain A players, and on and on and on. All of that basic blocking and tackling has already been figured out. The point that you raised, Andrew, how to get your leadership team bought into your vision. There is a proven path and a proven set of tools. So what I, as a Pinnacle Business Growth Guide, say is, man, don't allocate any of your limited attention and brain power to reinventing that wheel and figuring out how to do those things yourself. Instead, hire a guide, right? With that basic blocking and tackling, right? The 80% of your business, that's the same as everybody else's business. Without taken care of, that operating like a well-oiled machine that predictably takes human energy in on this side, runs it through your cash machine, and props out more profit on the other side. With all of that taken care of by your guide and the tools that he or she brings, you can then allocate all of your attention and your team's creativity. And, to your listener, Dan Rockwell's point, the muse, right? You can spend more time listening to that muse and turning those ideas into action versus, again, figuring out how to grow your business by inventing tools that someone else has already proven and by blazing on your own paths that someone else has already laid in the snow for you.
No, I love that. I love, the analogy of having of the Sherpa, because they've gone, it's trial and error on their part. They've made all the mistakes, taken the wrong path, and fell over and got scraped and burned. Their job is to not, to help you to avoid all of that. That's why we hire them.
Yeah. As guides, it's bad for business when you lose climbers. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, absolutely, it's in our best interest for you to succeed wildly.
Yeah, and it's I've been there. I've run multiple companies too. Some of them have worked out great. A lot of them haven't. But it's just trying those ideas out and figuring out what works. But the ones that, when I look back on it, when I debrief, the ones that are successful, those are the ones that I went and had a guide. I had somebody helping me do that. That to me was the easy button, is getting somebody who's already been there. And you talked a lot about the tools in the system, especially for new entrepreneurs, people who have never run businesses. There's a lot to it. It is not, rainbows and unicorns, and it's hard work. But somebody who can help you with that process of setting up the process to allow you the freedom to be creative. I love that, because so many entrepreneurs get stuck in the weeds. We're stuck in the minutia of creating, actually, figuring out what systems and processes actually work. And we spend so much time doing that we lose momentum. We lose any momentum that we had, even assuming we even had any in the first place.
Yes.
So what do you do to help, entrepreneurs figure out that there is no easy button? What would your advice to somebody who thinks that it's just easy and, things, kind of work themselves out?
Well, first, let's make sure that I'm talking to the right kind of entrepreneur. So, you and I as an entrepreneur are a good fit if you got into business for freedom, right? At a broad level, to do it your own way, to express your creativity, to be in control of your own destiny, right? If freedom is your primary motivator, then we're going to be a good fit. And further, I like to talk as Dan Sullivan does. So Dan Sullivan runs a group coaching program for entrepreneurs called Strategic Coach. And I'm a member of that program as an entrepreneur. And he talks about the 4 freedoms: freedom of time, money, relationship, and purpose. Freedom of time, increasingly, you're spending your time doing only those things you love to do and are great at. Or in other words, you're working in your unique ability. That's another Dan Sullivan term. And that just describes that handful of 1, 2, maybe 3 things God or the universe put you on this earth to excel at. And you've built a team and you've built systems to take care of everything else that needs to be done in your business. So I encounter people who don't have that freedom of time. They got in business for freedom of time, to do what they love to do and are great at, but they found themselves wearing too many hats, stuck in the weeds, and putting out too many fires. So as a Pinnacle Growth Guide, I help them build a self-managing company that frees them up to grow their business in the direction they want at the speed they want. We entrepreneurs are momentum-based beings, right? We need to be in momentum at all times. I'll tell a little story that I hope translates to people who aren't familiar with Lincoln, Nebraska. So I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska. Lincoln, Nebraska is the 2nd largest city in Nebraska. Omaha, Nebraska is the largest. It's 45 minutes northeast to here. So to get there from my house, I go north on 48th Street, and I hit a stoplight at Adams, right? And that street is right before the highway that takes me to the interstate to get to Omaha. So I want to get to Omaha, and I want to get there now, right? And so I hit this stoplight. So what do? Do I wait at the stoplight until I can go forward, turn diagonally right onto the highway that takes me to the interstate? Do I do that? No. I turn right because I can't stand to not be in momentum. So I turn right, and then I take this weird left onto Tuzlin, and then another left on a side street, and then another right onto that highway. I knew the whole time it was a less efficient route, but I have to be moving in the direction I want at the speed I want. That's that feeling of momentum, right? And so entrepreneurs who feel like they're getting pulled out of momentum are a great fit for talking to a growth guide.
Oh, great. It is a great points there for sure. Yeah, when we feel like we're not in momentum, we feel stuck. And then I think for certain entrepreneurs, especially, we kind of go into shutdown mode. Like they don't know
Yeah.
where to start to get that momentum back, which can be frustrating, debilitating, which is horrible if you're running a team because they feel that, they sense that. Dan had a couple comments too. I want to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to pop those up. So Dan said a hustler can't truly learn from your Cliff Notes. And then his next comment was they can only learn through the car accident itself. What would your take be on that, John?
My take on that would be to tell a story about actual Cliff Notes. So, Andrew, did you survive high school English through Cliff Notes like I did?
For sure.
And
Yes.
so, for anybody who's maybe a little younger in your audience and doesn't know what Cliff Notes are, like, okay, imagine like you're in 12th grade English and they assign Anna Karenina, which is by a Russian novelist. It's like 800 pages long. And the list of characters with those long, Zarovich, Ililovich, Andreevich, like the list of characters in the book is 3 single space pages long. Crazy. So enter Cliff's Notes, which summarize books like Anna Karenina, right? And so an entrepreneur here in Lincoln, Nebraska, my friend, Jay Wilkinson, owner of Firespring, which among other things is a printing company, he owns the binding machine that bound every copy of Cliff's Notes. And so he does this culture tour at Firespring. He's done a TED talk about it. He's gotten national media attention for how great the culture is at Firespring. He does this culture tour. He takes you on a tour of the whole plant. And so I've been on it like 8 times, right? And so what I do is every time I go by the Cliff's Notes binding machine, I kind of bow to it and I thank it. And it still runs. They still use it to bind booklets. So that's what I have to say.
I would have to tell my son. My son's 17. I would have to tell them what Cliff Notes is. It's just amazing the things that we've had to explain to him what they are that we take for granted. And yeah, I feel like my dad now. So it's a totally weird experience. He'll be graduated high school, and it's all the things that my dad told me. I'm telling him now. So.
Our kids reach up to the monitor, they pinch and expand and everything. I'm like, honey, not a touch screen. You're actually damaging it.
Yeah. So Dan, getting back to my reply to Dan which is the reason that I do what I'm doing right now. And a lot of the people that I help are from the industry that I spent 30 years in. And, my take on that too, Dan, I would agree with you to a large extent in that we learn a lot through mistakes. When you burn your hand, you learn not to do that again. But I think part of that, what I'm trying to especially prevent entrepreneurs from, is being in the place where I was 7 years ago. 7 years ago, my son was 10 years old. I had spent the last 10 years running an IT company, growing it from nothing. I was literally rolling change in my living room to make a car payment when he was 6 months old after being fired from a local job. And again, I was like, I'm never going to let that happen again. So it's just all of that blood, sweat, and tears that was my why, was my son. But a weird thing about it was 10 years later, I was at a point in my life where I was not who my father had taught me to be. I had abandoned a large part of what I knew to be right and wrong because I was chasing money. And that's what it became about for me at the end. The challenge in the car wreck that I'm trying to save people from is the one that almost put me in the ground. because I ignored a lot of the health things. I ignored a lot of those things because I was in hustle and grind mode, and I bought into what everybody told me success looked like. And I worked 7 days a week. I worked 70, 80, 90 hours a week for 10 years.
Wow.
And I think that's the car wreck for me personally that I'm trying to prevent people from getting to. And what led me to that realization was some of the people that in my industry, in my peer groups, didn't survive the car wreck.
Yes.
And when you have to put them in the ground, that is, for me, is a completely different perspective on life, on business. So, yeah, I mean, I think to one part, I agree with you, Dan. I've learned a lot by making mistakes. But especially with this industry that I was in, I see a breaking point coming for the IT industry that I love. And I talk a lot about that. That was one of the other reasons that I started this show. I can see clearly now what being burnt out, what being on the brink of catastrophic failure looks like. And that's what I'm hoping to prevent by helping people. So, yeah, but I appreciate the conversation that Dan adds to. So, but yeah, go ahead.
Andrew, I find what you do just incredibly inspiring. It says on your website, we help our clients learn how to build a calm company. Calm is family first. Calm is more independence. Calm is sustainable practices for the long term. Calm is joyful. Yeah. You say that, I'm sorry, some of your friends didn't survive the car wreck. Some entrepreneurs aren't surviving the heart attacks and the strokes. It was about a month ago. There was news of an international study, health study. Thousands of participants across many different countries, many different cultures and everything, America, Germany, et cetera, and everything, that found a significantly elevated risk of heart attack and stroke from working more than 55 hours a week, right? And that built on existing research just in productivity that showed that, past 55 hours a week, it's such steeply diminishing marginal returns on that additional hour that, man, you're really just wasting that extra time, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I've got a client that just started with me that has not taken a vacation in 40 years of business, 40 years of business.
I thought 10 was bad for me, so...
Well, speaking of the number 10, I was in a session with him, and in the check-in, where he's sharing his good news, he says, "Oh, well, I am going on a fishing trip." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing," right? And he says, "My buddies are taking a 10-day fishing trip." And I say, "How many days are you going?" "Well, I'm going to go for 3. Yep. And I said to him, "We're going to get that number up by the end of the day," right? And so we worked on his business. We worked on putting in place people and processes and playbooks he trusted, performance indicators, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, unbidden, I didn't even have to ask him. He said, "Oh, I'm going 10 days." Freedom for, the founder to, we talk about, you and I were talking, Andrew, about the wonderful location independence that Zoom has brought us and everything. I've got owners in Nebraska companies, right, who I can't say as I blame them. They prefer to be somewhere else than Nebraska in sort of the December to March months and everything. Yep. So, I've got several owners who are in Florida. And we schedule our sessions a year in advance. We meet quarterly, that kind of thing. And they've got the complete freedom to just do that via Zoom. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. The only thing we say is, you gotta let us tease you a little bit. So when you log in to the quarterly planning meeting with, me and your leadership team here, Friesen took us off in Nebraska, you gotta just, turn your Zoom camera so we can see, the waves lapping on the shore, the palm trees, right? And we're going to tease you and say, "Oh man, it's good to be king," right? Yep. And then we'll get on with growing your business.
My dad loves to do that. My folks live in Florida, so he watches the Weather Channel like ridiculously. So every time it's like 0, it's below 0, it's snowing here in Ohio, that's what he does. It's like I know it's coming. And he's like, oh, yeah. He sends me a picture of him at the beach, and he's like, oh, yeah, it's 85 degrees here. So, yeah, I totally get that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just an interesting, thing that we have. We get hung up with that. And looking back on that, as I rewound when I sold my business in 2014, it was just a weird thing, a weird place to be in. I had no idea what I was going to do next. But to actually be in a place, that's what I did. I basically went to Florida I think we went for like 2 or 3 weeks. That was the first real vacation that I took in 10 years where I was not working. Because I call it a vacation. I've seen that in some books, and we entrepreneurs do that. Just being totally unplugged is almost impossible. But for the first time, I think in my life, I had nothing to do. I had, and that's actually really where Orange Nomad came from, sitting on the beach, at my folks and appreciating being with my family and, having my son around his grandma and grandpa.
Yes.
I've got 2 sisters and a brother down in I've got half my family's in Florida. Yeah, we're a big family.
Yep.
But yeah, that's one of the things. It helped me to see that I was not living my why with that business. And, I was happier than anything to finally have that recognition before it almost took my life. I mean, I'm still feeling the physical repercussions of doing what I did. And, it's hard for me to see that, just to see people posting online, and I can tell just by people's comments. I mean, I was lucky at that time to get 2 to 3 hours of sleep every night.
Wow.
And I did that for like the last 2 or 3 years. And that was with Ambien. That was with painkillers. That was with a lot of things. And I was still only getting 2 to 3 hours of sleep. And so we see all of that. So I think, that's an experience that takes away from the joy of running a business. When you sacrifice so much that we're trying to hit that easy button. We're trying to think that things are easy when in reality they're not. But just having that realization before it's too late. So Kyle said, have you ever told in depth my full story in a podcast video? I've let out bits and pieces. I know, Kyle, I think you're in the IT industry. That's the thing that I've seen up to pandemic, up to COVID, that wasn't a story that sold inside the IT industry, which was a weird, thing for me. Because when I would talk about that, it's like nobody wanted to talk about feelings. I'm an introvert. I think we talked about that, prior to going live. I'm an INFJ introvert. I am extremely introverted, and doing this show. But I digress. I think most of the IT industry is that way. We're analytical, introverted entrepreneurs, and that's the part nobody wanted to talk about. The last year, it's become easier because I think more people are challenged with that than ever. So people are more willing to have a conversation about mental health. People are more willing about getting help. And I think that's part of what being a guide, at least for me, is part of that, helping people come to the realization that you can run a calm business. And that had I had it to do over again, I wish I had done that. I would be in a different place had I done that. And
Yes.
that you can run a calm business. And the sooner we stop believing the hype, and I think Dan touched on that too in one of his comments, mentor toxification. He mentioned in one of his comments. That's where I was at. I had the wrong mentors. I was buying in, and the some of the mentors that I had, I'm actually embarrassed now that I spent time being educated by them. Because I think that's the true colors of what they are as people has come out the last year especially. But looking back on it, I just was too blind to see it because I didn't want to believe it. But it's not, it just totally went totally against what I was raised to believe, my core values as a person. So I do think that, mentor toxification is certainly part of it. And that's why I started this show, is so we can stop listening to everybody else. Do what's good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've let out, to answer Kyle's question, I have let that out in bits and pieces. Kyle, if you DM me, I'll send you, I've been on some podcasts. I want the IT industry, especially the vendors. It's been I want the vendors to take more ownership of this in my industry, in the IT industry. Because a lot of them are venture cap based now, and they're pushing sales and they're pushing growth. The problem is, if you don't have any customers writing you checks because they're not with us anymore, I don't think that benefits anyone. But I've done some video interviews. That's why I started this show, is to talk about these things, Kyle. So if you're in a place where you want help with that, reach out, please. Go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you off there, John.
So, I mean, Kyle and Andrew, I also have my own story of physical danger from working too many hours, getting burnt out, traveling too much for business, and I've told that story on a number of podcasts that I can connect your listeners to. But basically, I had to go completely off the road and stop business traveling because I had a potentially debilitating and even fatal illness, and thank God I came through it, but it wasn't easy. Another point, Andrew, that I wanted to play off of is, you're talking about you received mentoring from the wrong mentors, and it just made me think about kind of the broad array of professional help that an entrepreneur can make herself or make himself can take advantage of, right? Certainly there's mentors, there's coaches, there's consultants, there's advisors. I think sometimes, not all times, but sometimes mentors are motivated in part by creating copies of themselves, right? Whereas a coach is motivated by making you, the client, the best version of yourself that you can be. And I think there's a subtle difference in that. We're not going to lean on you. We're not going to force ourselves on you. We're going to present you with world-class solutions, always based in experience, never in theory. But as I like to say to my clients whenever I'm about to present a recommendation, which I do on occasion, I say, I guide, you decide. It's your business. I'm not trying to make you into me.
That's for sure. That's my approach to it as well. I can only tell, and that's what I try to do, is share those bumps. And I share the car accidents that I've been in, make recommendations, and yet I let our clients do, what they ultimately feel, that what is necessary for you. And I'm not going to dictate to that. I just show here's the valuable lessons that I've learned from doing this myself, and the valuable lessons that I've learned watching other people get into car accidents. So yeah, it's just, for me, it's about trying to help them not have the bumps and bruises and to get as much benefit. I like that, being the best version of them possible. Because when we are that, when we're operating at that level, so many more things are opened up to us. We are benefit so much from our business, which is the reason we started it in the first place. And, when we're good about who we are as people and what we're able to give back, I think that's a completely different level of growth that we see with entrepreneurs. So Dan Gilligan said, yep, just getting back from taking my daughter to Universal Studios, I feel like a lot of us get stuck running a million miles an hour and we cannot see the trees for the forest. We forget that time keeps passing and we're not doing anything different. So congratulations to you, Dan, for doing what is important. And I think, for me, that a lot of that, looking back, I thought a lot of that changed when my son was born. But it was like, when I looked at it after he was 10 years old, and I looked at where I was at 10 years old, and the example that I was leading for him as he grew, I knew that I didn't want to be that version anymore. And again, it's another one of those things that I still suffer the repercussions of those things that I did and said, and the work at all expense mentality. That my relationship with him isn't where I would like it to be, even at 17 years old, because of what I did in the first 10 years of his life. He sees a complete opposite of what I was. It's hard for him to reconcile that, and to see that, you can live a version of yourself when you stop believing what everybody else tells you should look like, and when everybody stops telling you what success looks like. And that's the biggest thing I'm trying to help him to learn as he goes out into the world, that we have so much ability to dictate based upon what we intake. And, it's just, hopefully he gets it. But again, as Dan mentioned, that, he'll learn from trial and error, but as we all do, but if we can prevent that, as parents, that's what we try to do. So what, I guess, a couple of other questions. I know we're coming up on the top of the hour. I want to be respectful of your time. So we'll just do one last parting shot. What advice would you give a startup entrepreneur who's thinking about starting a business? Because I've seen a lot of that in the last year, where people that have been working on their side hustles are now ready to make that leap into calling their own shot. So what would be your advice to a startup entrepreneur, somebody who might be thinking about starting a business?
Yeah. Well, I would read a book by a friend of mine, Gino Wickman. It's called The Entrepreneurial Leap. Gino Wickman, The Entrepreneurial Leap. And it takes you through a series of reflection questions about whether entrepreneurship is really something that you want to do. And then the other advice I would give is to have a plan B, right? I've always had plan Bs in my entrepreneurial pursuits, and it's served me really well. I've also had tremendous spousal support. My wife is a nurse and an instructor of nursing, and so she has the world's best health benefits and the world's most rock solid job security, right? So keeping a policy, as we always have, of living within the means of one salary, it has enabled me to make slower, more deliberate choices in my businesses and avoid, not perfectly, but to a large extent, the 80, 100 hour grinded out, out of absolute survival level necessity. I set up my businesses and set up our family finances. So, honestly, there never was a moment of, do or die survival, right? So, read Entrepreneurial Leap and then connect with other entrepreneurs. Don't, for the love of God, mom and apple pie, do it alone, because there are other people who have been there and thrown up that, right? Yep. And there's just nothing that replaces the camaraderie of a fellow human being who has, dry heaved on Thursday night because she or he wasn't sure they'd be able to make payroll Friday morning. So,
yep. Thank you. I haven't read that book yet. I've read quite a few of Gino's books. Been following Gino since way back in 2008, 2009 when he started writing. So, yeah, it's been a while. So he's a lover of orange too. I found. I think that was one of the reasons I gravitated towards some of his books. So.
Yeah, that's his brand color as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that kind of bled over into me. I asked tech business. It was orange, and I've started this business and just figured if I love orange so much, I put it in the company name this time. So, but John, thank you so much for being with us today. I want to thank our audience for being with us. So, please help me give a warm warm salute to John for being on the show today. We really, really appreciate it, John.
Oh, gosh, Andrew, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for the invitation.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Bye now.
Thanks so much for hanging out today with me. I appreciate that. Hopefully there was some things that may be of benefit to you as we talked about our want, our desire to reach the top as entrepreneurs. For me, that there's no easy button. It's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of bumps and bruises, a lot of scrapes that occur. But as John mentioned in his parting thoughts, we don't have to do it alone, and that is the biggest reason I started this show. And this is why I call it Wednesday Afternoon Business Therapy, because that's what it is for me. It is a way of giving back. It is therapy for me to be able to share my story, to be able to share great people like John and his story so that we can all help each other. I think more than ever, that's what we all need. That's what we all want more than ever. But it isn't about what I want. It isn't about what I or John or anybody else says that your life should look like. It is about doing what is absolutely necessary for you. So I want to thank Dan Gilligan, Dan Rockwell, Kyle Kenyon for being on the show, and Dan Rockwell for contributing so much. I knew you'd have a lot to say about entrepreneurship, and we've all had that diverse, rocky road as entrepreneurs. But again, that's why I love this show, because we actually can share that and help each other with that. So as part of my Wednesday night therapy, for me is Wednesday night music therapy. So my guy, Drake White, and I'm sporting one of his shirts this week, Barn Gangster. I'm into country music. He's based out of Nashville. He's been doing live broadcasts a little bit longer than I have as the pandemic started. He does a weekly broadcast. This will link you to his YouTube channel, where he goes live every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern time. But yeah, check him out. Again, that's how I wrap my therapy up for Wednesdays. I do business therapy in the afternoon. I get my music therapy at night. Thanks again for supporting the show. If you'd like to grab some Team Orange merch, head over to orangenomad.com/merch. That allows us to keep the lights on here and keep providing content, free content every single week for entrepreneurship, for business, anything you can do to help us. I would appreciate that. Definitely check out John. I forgot to pop up his LinkedIn, but I'll go ahead and pop that into the description of the show over on LinkedIn. So thanks again for hanging out with us this week. We appreciate you. I appreciate all the viewers. If you're watching this after the fact, thank you. Please let me know in the comments if this show has helped you and what may be the one thing that you took away from this show that has helped you or touched you personally. So thanks again. I can't thank you enough. As I've ended this show every single week since we started, always stay humble and kind, and always do what is necessary. I'll see you next week.